This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's edition of Doc and Jock. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me, my guy Adam, the Jock Strozinski. Boy, we got a lot to get to. The Lions participating at the league's annual owners meeting. The NFL making some crazy rule changes. Some aspect of the game is going to look like the XFL. We're going to talk about it. A fugitive, potentially at Allen Park. We got to talk about one of the wildest stories that came out from the Lions at the owners meeting. It was crazy, and everybody has kind of just been like thinking about, wow, what it meant for the Lions, what it meant for this player. Craziness going on regarding a veteran defensive back. And then we'll talk about, in the second half of the podcast, real interesting in regards to the NCAA tournament. Even though Adam and I weren't really into the brackets, there were some blue bloods that struggled against a Michigan squad that really was interesting in regards to kind of a culmination of a season of having a nice roster, a unified front, and a player that went off. So some March Madness, some Cinderella type stuff was actually going on, and it hit close to home. We'll break that all down. And even though the Tigers and the Pistons aren't expected to do a whole heck of a lot moving forward, we're still going to talk about them just a little bit, as well as the Michigan program. Because what's going on? Did you hear the craziness regarding Cam Sutton? Because when everybody found out that everybody was at first clarifying, wait a minute. First, it started in the morning when on Monday when the AFC coaches took to the podium and Mike Tomlin kind of was asked, hey, have you reached out to kind of troubled players like Cam Sutton? He's like, yeah, I reach out to those kind of guys. And they were like, what'd you say? And he's like, none of your business. And everybody was like, wait a minute, what does that mean? Is he aiding and abetting? That was messaged to us like 1,000 times on Twitter. And then on Tuesday, Rod Wood just drops the mic and is like, well, I got to kind of let you guys know that when the warrant Wednesday was dropped online, he was working out in our building. And everybody's like, wait a minute, what does this mean legally? And listen, nobody is really a legal expert online, but in essence, he was free to go. And since then, he's been missing, AWOL, and he's got a warrant out for his arrest. And it's just the craziest situation, especially because knowing how much emphasis was placed on culture, not bringing those kind of guys to the locker room. And unfortunately, as much due diligence as you do try with players, these kind of things happen. But boy, the whole Cam Sutton story is crazy. And it blew up our website, blew up Twitter, and it's just been lingering because it has long-term ramifications. And especially knowing just the simple fact that you're working out. Like I said, I sent you a message. My head is scratching like you're working out and you know potentially you got a family situation and 3-4 dudes come up to you and they're like, there's this thing in Florida going on? It had to be the wildest thing ever. What was your reaction, cuz, when you heard the entire Cam Sutton saga, and especially knowing he was roaming the building when the Florida police and the sheriff's office put out the information in the way they did online?
So this kind of happens in two parts for me, because you have the initial press release, right? And like you sent me a tweet on Twitter, and initially I didn't know what you were talking about. You were like Warrant Wednesdays, and I was like, what is going on? So then you got to start doing a little digging, got to do a little research, try figuring some stuff out. And I was shocked. I was flabbergasted. I was like, come on, man. Like, you know how this organization runs. You know that there is zero tolerance for any type of domestic abuse. It's one of those things that I think comes from the top down as far as Sheila Hamp goes and as far as Martha Ford goes. It's just one of those things that they do not allow with this organization. So for you to have a situation like that, one is just absolutely crazy because you know your career's over. Two, the way the story kind of gets broken and unfolds, this happens earlier the week prior, and it happens just before the Lions go out and start making some moves for some cornerbacks. So when that happens, it has me scratching my head and saying, hey, maybe they knew something. Now the Lions come out and say, no, we didn't know anything. We didn't find anything out until, the day of, when everything broke and he was in our building working out, which is another wrinkle to all of this, where it's like Cam Sutton is in Florida, has a domestic dispute where he chokes out either a baby mama or a girlfriend or somebody. And then next thing you know, he's back up in Michigan a week later working out in the facility. And the team is made aware. I use finger quotes here because I believe that they knew ahead of time. We'll get into that maybe a little bit later on. It's just my conjecture. The team was made aware that he has this situation unfolding with the Florida police. And the Florida police, could you please do a bit of a better job? Why are you going to Twitter? Why would you not reach out to his former employers? All you got to do is jump on a Wikipedia and find out that he played for 1, the Lions, and then 2, he played for the Steelers. So why not reach out to those organizations and say, hey, we've got a bit of a situation going on. Have you seen or have you heard of him? And then if you're the Lions, you're going to be like, yeah, he's actually here right now. And at that point, why don't you just call the Allen Park police if you're the Florida police and say, hey, look, we've got a warrant out for this guy's arrest. Can you go arrest him? It's really that simple. Instead, we're now, 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks in since the actual dispute took place, and this man is still on the run, and we still have no idea where he's at or what is going on. I mean, at this point, this dude has moved to Mexico, and he's just hoping not to get deported. It's bonkers how this is played out. It is something that you see in a movie on Netflix where you're like, hey, there's this really interesting story about this dude who was an athlete and he got into a little bit of an issue. And next thing you know, he's living in Colombia and he's a dope dealer. It's nuts. Let's watch this.
Yeah,
give it 3 thumbs up. You know what I'm saying? To me, the story is just absolutely mind-blowing, and it is something that you read about and you're just fascinated by, because how you got from point A all the way to point Z, all the twists and turns, all the little bit of nuggets you get in the middle, it's just absolutely crazy. It's bonkers.
It's very bonkers, and really, when you flee, when you don't turn yourself in and handle it right away, look, we're a forgiving society. If you put forth a case, if you got any semblance of a PR team, you can spin things a lot of different ways, even something as crazy as this. But to flee now for this long really points to guilt to a lot of people. Just people think that he's guilty. And look, the Lions wasted no time. 24 hours after, it was like, done. We're done with Cam Sutton. And they'll take the ramifications. They'll figure it out. It'll take a long time to get the signing bonus back, but they probably eventually will. They got to wait until the legal matter takes over. They designated him a post-June cut. They're going to accept all the ramifications of the cap. They just want to get rid of him, and Dan Campbell doesn't want to talk about it. Brad Holmes talked about it a little bit, indicating that, look, just based on the moves, and what he said was straightforward. Based on the free agency moves, the Cam Sutton situation does not force the Lions to take a defensive back. And he was measured and everything like that, whereas Dan Campbell was like, I'm not going to touch that subject. We're moving on. And it's just really unfortunate because it's a guy that could have had a role in a positive situation on this team, a bounce-back role, somebody that you would expect after a down year would come back and fight for an opportunity. Now, your NFL career is in jeopardy. Over what? I just think that there's solutions in regards to a lot of these domestic issues that people just do not take advantage of. And I know when it comes to potential custody situations, it's always going to be heated, but you always got to think in regards to making sure the situation's not escalated, not aggressive. And even though the legal system is wonky and bogged down, you got to use the channels that are available to you. And I think the Lions handled it perfectly, other than maybe I just wish someone would have asked, does this mean you're going to change a little bit more in regards to the vetting process? Because you're hearing, when you dig, that this kind of custody situation kind of stemmed back from the time in Pittsburgh. So did you turn a blind eye because you like the guy? Or what happened in regards to the reason you brought this guy here? Because it just didn't start in 2023. So that's what's unfortunate. And maybe, I don't think it's going to factored into the decision not to get L'Jarius Sneed. I just think that his extension was really something that just sent a lot of teams astray. So for the situation with Cam Sutton, it's crazy, but in the end, cuz outside of the legal situation, the cap situation is going to be a little bit stinging, but you will get a little bit relief down the road. I think you moved on from a player that maybe wasn't that good. So even though the circumstances, I take the approach, that's not the first thing I thought of was, oh, what's the cap saving and, oh, the team's better. But to be honest, he wasn't that good. And if you can upgrade that spot with a young guy that's developing and you patchwork it, look, man, the NFL has made it so that, you know what, I could see why Brad Holmes doesn't want to pay a cornerback $20 million. The defensive backs can't tackle. Friends don't let friends play cornerback. And now in 2024, you can't even wrap your hands around an individual and bring him down by the hips. It's unbelievable the way in which the NFL has kind of devalued defense. So in my mind, see you later, alligator. You're gone, out of sight, out of mind. I just hope that he's okay and turns himself in and let the legal process start. But his future with the Lions is over, and his NFL career is in jeopardy.
Yeah, look, I think the Lions handle this appropriate, right? They have a culture that they've established. They have a tone that they have set. And you know when you sign with this organization, you know what's acceptable and what's not. You know what you can get into a little bit of trouble with and what you absolutely cannot get in trouble with. And this is one of those things that this team has a zero tolerance policy. And they just went ahead and they pushed it. They said, look, this is where we stand on these situations. And they let them go. And I think when you look back on it, the Lions are probably, you don't want these situations to occur, right? But the Lions are probably happy that this did take place because this is a get out of jail free card. I know that up front there might be some cap ramifications, but once he's charged and once he's basically committed for the crimes that he allegedly committed, those cap issues go away. It all of a sudden they're just wiped away. The Lions are able to get out from underneath that contract. They're able to get out from underneath those cap restraints. They're able to manage all of that, and it just kind of goes by the wayside. You don't have to worry about it any longer. Now, in the meantime, like you said, they're going to designate it for a June 1st cut. They've got all these things going on. They're going to have to bite the bullet up front until the legal process plays out. But like we've already said, you're not on the run for this long. If you're innocent, you're not doing these actions that Cam Sutton is taking if you're innocent. So it's one of those things where once everything catches up and once all the ink dries, the Lions will be in an okay spot and they will get the cap relief they need because the way the NFL is set up, that cap hit's not going to count against them. And it's weird to me because you go out, you make these moves for other cornerbacks, right? You bring in Meek Robinson, you bring in Carlton Davis, and you look like you're building that cornerback room up. You end up re-signing Emmanuel Mosley, and so you've got guys. I think you brought Vildor back as well. So you've got guys in that room, and now you move on from Cam Sutton, who we both agree did not have a very good year last year. I bitched about him a lot on this very podcast, and I bitched to you privately about him a lot. Especially when games were unfolding, and I was quite pissed off. You kind of caught the wrath of me being very upset with Mr. Sutton. So I think it's okay as far as the Lions are concerned, especially with the depth in their room. It's set up an interesting situation because we've talked about L'Jarius Sneed. We've wanted L'Jarius Sneed. We've said that L'Jarius Sneed would be ideal in this offense because he does a great job playing 1v1. He basically locks down a quarter to a third to a half of the field. You don't need to worry about rolling a safety over. He's good by himself. He takes care of business on his end of the field. You don't have to worry about nothing. And then when you find out what the Titans gave up for L'Jarius Sneed, it has to have you questioning, what are the Lions doing? What are the Lions seeing that we're not seeing? Why would the Lions not go out and make this move? Who, for a guy who seems like he would fit immediately, would also take over that role from Cam Sutton, where you are the CB1. He is a legit CB1, whereas Cam Sutton was maybe a CB2. This guy instantly upgrades your defense, instantly makes that secondary better. Yet the Lions passed, and what the Titans gave up was a third-round pick, and there was a pick swap coming down the road that sounds like it might be a 6th or a 7th-round pick. And they extended him for roughly $19 million a year, $55 million up front, which breaks down to, over 4 years, it is about an $11.5 million cap hit. That's not a lot of money. It's not like the Lions have cap space. The Lions have money. The fact that they didn't go out and do this is frustrating to me. And this broke on Friday night. And you and I recorded a podcast on Saturday morning, and me and you were talking about it, and I was still kind of worked up about it. I was pissed. I just don't understand why the Lions would not give up that third-round pick, would not even give up I would give up a second for this guy. I told you earlier in the year I would give up my first-round pick. I'd give up the pick at 29 for this guy because he would make my defense that much better. And yet they elected to pass. And while I was bitching to you on Saturday, you said something very important. Do you remember what you said to me about the Lions and why they didn't complete this and why they didn't do this?
No, refresh my memory.
You said to me, you were like, look, I get why you're upset.
Yes.
But the Lions are not willing to pay that money. They're not willing to extend a guy who's not their own.
Yes.
They're not willing to go out and trade for a guy and then cut him a check for damn near $20 million a season
based on their,
and bring him here for the next 4 years.
Yes.
And to me, I think it becomes a bit of a dangerous game. When you start playing like that, it becomes a bit of a dangerous game because you could really hurt yourself. You had a chance to really upgrade your defense, but because you have this philosophy that you don't want to extend guys who aren't your own, you are going to take a pass. And look, I do understand it because you've seen guys in the past, Albert Hainsworth, you've seen guys like Chase Young who get that big contract and then they kind of dick around for the rest of their career and they don't really ever hit those levels again. You have guys, there's a countless numbers of guys that you can go through the league and say, look, that guy got extended and he was never the same player. That guy got extended, was never the same player. I get it. I do. But I feel like you missed a valuable opportunity to go out and trade for a guy who, in essence, is a first-round talent, and all you had to give up was a third-round pick and possibly a seventh-round pick, maybe a sixth-round pick, and then just cut a check for $20 million a year, and it would have been fine. How big of a misstep do you think this could be for the Detroit Lions not getting into the L'Jarius Sneed sweepstakes?
Well, it depends. Maybe in the second round you land TJ Tampa. Maybe you get aggressive and get your Quinyon Mitchell, maybe some luck, and you get Kool-Aid McKinstry. There are some defensive backs that people like. Now, with the way in which the NFL has kind of moved toward adding value to special teams guys, a lot of people are looking at Cooper DeJean from Iowa, who Jack Campbell told me directly is a dog, is a player that is a guy that works hard and makes plays and has impact. So, to me, I get it on one side, but at the same token, I've seen L'Jarius Sneed and his statistical numbers against opposing receivers are legitimately awesome. They're good numbers. And so I felt like if I just wish that he would have been willing to, come to a competitive team and take a little bit less money. But he got good money from the Titans, so that's where he ends up. And it's unfortunate. It's a matter of which that you kind of realize, look, man, you're hearing the Lions want to prioritize Amon-Ra St. Brown, that's $25 to $28 million. Jared Goff, $40 to $50 million. You're going to have Aiden Hutchinson, Penei Sewell. Those guys are getting the checks. And unfortunately, it just doesn't feel like the free agents that for the foreseeable future, and I know people will say, well, when? Will he do it once? I think he'll do it if there's a guy and there's an immediate need and you're one piece away. But in the meantime, I think the highest you see is between 10 and 15 million per season. They kind of have that comfort zone regarding how much they pay. Cam Sutton got 11. You're seeing guys get one-year deals, short-term, not handcuffed. So it's a new way. We're not used to it here in Detroit, but proof's in the pudding. Lions got to the NFC Championship, so you can't discount what he did. And I just think that in terms of external dollars, in terms of free agency, they're not coming to the Detroit Lions. And we'll see. We'll see this year how the defensive backs adapt to the new rule because the hip drop rule has been taken away. And some rules that the Lions put out there have been amended. What do you think, just real fast, of the new kickoff rule? Adam Schefter posted it, and I commented on it. It does look a little bit weird, but I think it has a chance to make the game more exciting.
I think it has the ability to, but look, it's going to take a while for me to get used to something like that. It is weird. They basically adopted what the XFL did, and it's interesting to me that the XFL and the USFL are basically these tryout leagues for the NFL. So like they'll kind of try things there, and then if they work, they bring them to the NFL. I don't know. To me, the whole point of all of this, if you really want to minimize what goes on with the kickoff, or you want to change it this much, just get rid of it. just do away with the kickoff. Everybody starts at the 25-yard line, and we just go. We just play. You have minimized the kick returner's role so much that I just don't see the point in continuously altering this rule, continuously altering this type of play. If you don't value that position, you don't value this that much, just ball starts on the 25. Go, guys. 75 yards to score a touchdown. Just do it. Just go. Because right now, the way, if I understand the rule right, and you correct me if I'm wrong, basically everybody lines up within 10 yards of each other from what appears to be about I think it's like the 35-yard line. And then the kicker kicks it, and nobody can run until the kicker actually puts a foot onto the ball. And you've got to get the ball basically inside, what is it? I think it's the 10 to the goal line. And if it goes past the goal line, the ball automatically comes out to the 40. So there's a penalty on the kicking team if you don't place the ball within that required zone. To me, it seems a little bit complicated, a little bit convoluted, and it seems like there are going to be some issues early on with the adjustment to this rule. And I just don't know if it's worth it. I don't know if it's worth all of the headache, all of the trouble, and if it's going to make the game that much better.
Yeah, it's crazy, these rules. I like the additional challenge that you get no matter what. You get.
I like that too. I think that's smart.
The challenge rule is good. I think the seeing if the clock expires, the ability to challenge that's going to be good. The hip drop one, I'm not a fan of. I think players are just going to not tackle.
Me neither.
I hate it.
It's
dumb.
stupid. It could cost you a game.
Yeah.
It sounds like what's going to happen is you're just going to get fined later on. But I could see this costing you a game. You could get an overzealous referee who throws a flag on something.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to either waste a review or you won't be able to review it because it's a penalty. I think it's stupid. I think it's silly.
Yeah. So it was a fruitful owners meeting. I mean, they actually got a lot of things done and talked about and looking at the league and how it goes. But man, the thing that sucks is they're adding a doubleheader on Christmas. So that means they're going to play teams that are going to be on Christmas are going to play on Saturday. And then they got to turn around. It's like Thanksgiving. So I don't think it's going to be the Lions. The other thing that impacts me, and which I'm probably not going to partake in, but we'll see one day when the announcement comes. But Canada and Germany have acquired distribution NFL rights from the Detroit Lions. So that really what that means is the Lions are more likely to play a game in Germany in their future. And I think it's funny because our boy Kenny's German, and he would definitely take advantage of that if there was an opportunity to go to Germany. But I'm so scared of flying this. I think my passport's expired. I think I lost my passport.
Kenny would be your guy. He'd be your surrogate over there in Germany.
Exactly. You go over there and figure it all out. But it might happen in 25, 26. The Lions might lose a home game in the name of growing the game internationally, and obviously with the clearly signaling that Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to be the future of this team for the long-term haul because he speaks fluent German. It's crazy to think about the expansion of the NFL and seeing how things go in regards to all of that. It's crazy. Real fast, credit, finally. We've knocked the Lions for not speaking up. Rod Wood dropped the mic on the league when he came out and said, and you can see all these things at All Lions at SI.com, or you can go to YouTube and see the video of Rod Wood and Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes. You get an hour and a half of content. And if you're a fan of football, it's a lot of things that, listen, the reporters didn't ask like bold questions, but they asked probing good questions that were intriguing. You get an hour and a half of content between the three interviews, half hour each. And it was crazy. Rod Wood comes out and he's like, I was after the Dallas game, people wanted to know, like, what's the Lions' reaction after you got screwed and the whole stupid eligibility thing and reporting and getting it wrong and blaming Taylor Decker for incorrectly reporting and all that nonsense. He's like, I tried to get a hold of Troy Vincent, the NFL executive, and I didn't. And he was in church, and people were wondering, like, what kind of correspondence did you have? He's like, what? Were you praying that the NFL officials are going to play better or perform better? I thought that was great. It was a great line. And look, you have to say it because the officiating is not that good, and somebody came out directly and said it. So check it out there. It was really good to see. I think people are turning the corner a little bit more on Rod because he's been there for so long, and it's kind of like one of those things where, okay, you've mended the fence now with Calvin. The brand that Calvin represents is on board. Things are a lot better. So things are turning around in regards to the popularity of Rod Wood, and he's part of an organization that's starting to turn things around. So people are not as hateful towards Rod Wood. And then finally, regarding,
I think real quick, I think the league itself has had a bit of an about face with the Lions. I think the league now respects the Detroit Lions, respects that front office, and this is something that we've talked about before with these owners' meetings. The Lions usually go; they do propose rules. The problem is, nobody really takes anything that the Lions said seriously, and they would always reject the Lions' rules, or they wouldn't even get to the table. This year, the Lions proposed a couple of rules. They were approved, and you're seeing the league as a whole pay more attention to the Lions. They are listening more intently to what the Lions have to say, what the Lions ownership, what the Lions front office has to say, and they are taking them much more serious. So I think it's a very good thing. It's a very good sign if you're a Lions fan, because the league is finally giving you the recognition that you deserve.
Yes, no doubt about it. And finally, after 5 years, the Doc. I want to thank you people out there and to share with you, because you're like, okay, John broke a story, no big deal. But to me it was, because it wasn't through just cultivating sources or anything like that. The second that Rod Wood spit out that the uniform was going to be revealed prior to the draft, that's what everybody had. The news, the free press, the other blogs, they put before the draft. Well, thank you. Finally, let me say that again. Thank you, the loyal supporters of DSP, because multiple people, the second that came out, messaged me on Twitter and were like, it's April 18th. We know because there's an event. It's been scheduled. People are starting to plan their schedules. There's workers here. It's going to be huge. It's April 18th. So when multiple people sent it, I got to confirm it, and it was actually really cool to be able to add nugget of information that others that were in Florida were discussing. So thank you guys, the loyal supporters of DSP and All Lions, for flooding my inbox with that date, and to have so many of you in numbers got the power to get it confirmed. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. It was really cool. I was like, okay, I can see where people like this, because I liked adding information that nobody else had and creating a story based on it. But man, the channels in which you got to jump through to confirm the two sources rule that you guys all got, I'm like, fuck that rule. I'm throwing up a amendment to the two sources rule. And we got to find a new word to describe I got information that's better than rumor, that I got something to share, but I don't know if it's true or not, that you guys accept. I know everyone's liking the facts and all that, but my God, the hoops you got to jump through. I was like trying to write the thing so fast, double, triple checking it. I'm like, somebody else is going to have this. I was like, okay, yeah, I'm more into the podcasting and the spitting out words, but it was fun. It was fun to finally break a story that nobody else had, and you can check it out at All Lions. If you want to know the date when you'll see the new Lions jersey, we'll talk about it probably in a couple weeks, so jot it down, what we want to see in this uniform. Because I'm not a uniform snob. I don't care as long as it's not hideous when it comes out. They've been working on it a couple years, so we'll see what the fruits of the label are, what's going to come about it. Because we got to talk about it, because what was said, interesting, by Dan Campbell in his talk was he thinks the Lions are still going to add a cornerback. So that kind of, to me, points to a couple situations. Maybe a trade for Lattimore, and I know we talked about external, but he's a guy that Marshawn Lattimore is a guy that the Lions would trust, because I would consider him not really an external, because he's with the Saints, and that falls under the we're super duper comfortable with our own kind of philosophy. Could be Marshawn Lattimore, Patrick Surtain, could be somebody else that you keep tabs on, or maybe it's Gilmore. Would you be okay with one of those three? Do you have a favorite? Is there a cornerback out there that you see roaming the free agency wire that could be? I think people saying a Dory Jackson or that name out there, but I don't see. I would just roll with the draft and go with somebody and develop it, because I think allocating more free agency resources when you need some save for the draft and a rainy day, I don't want to pay Stephon Gilmore. I don't want to kind of give up that draft capital and pay Marshawn Lattimore. Surtain is interesting. I would entertain that, in my opinion.
I mean, Surtain for sure, because he's an absolute stud.
Yes.
But I believe it will probably be Stephon Gilmore. I think you get Stephon Gilmore for a reasonable cost. You can sign him to a 1-year deal. That way it doesn't really clog anything up. So you get him for something shy of $12 million. I'm thinking in between 10, 11, maybe 12. And then you take one of your draft picks, whether it's at 29 or maybe you trade back with 29 and you get something in the second round. So you have 2 in the second round, and one of those picks is a cornerback. I know a couple weeks ago we were talking about cornerbacks in the draft and who we would like. And Cooper DeJean is projected to be there. He's a stud. What is it? Kion Mitchell, the guy from Toledo. It's a dude who me and you both really like. We both would like him. I think he'll probably be gone by the time 29 rolls around. But maybe Brad Holmes is really keen on him, and maybe he moves up for him. I don't know. I could see adding a cornerback in the draft, adding him relatively high, meaning in the first 2 rounds, and I would sign off on going out and getting Stephon Gilmore. So this allows your cornerback to come in, get his feet underneath him. You're not putting him right in the fire right away. You can kind of rotate him in, and when you feel he's ready, you always need depth at this position. You can rotate him in with Carlton Davis. You can rotate him in with Stephon Gilmore. You can rotate him in with whomever else you're going to have at that position. So I would go Gilmore, and I would use a draft pick on my future cornerback.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see how the Lions progress. There's still room, guys. Free agency is not over yet, but by and large, 98% of the moves have been accomplished. So we'll see moving forward what it means for the Lions. But good meeting for good owners meeting for the Lions in terms of a whole, in terms of what they wanted to accomplish. And for me personally, just seeing it, Orlando seems nice, man. I think it's a good opportunity to get to Florida. Next year is in Phoenix, so potentially speaking, in the coming years, if it's all still good, then I'll start doing some of this stuff. But I think I like Orlando better. It seems more kosher to those that want to drive or those that have familiarity. You could take family, then do Disney after. So we'll see. We'll see what it means. But the Lions owners meeting, definitely fruitful. And what everybody always likes, cuz, is Dan Campbell looks even more ripped compared to all the rest of the coaches in the picture. And the picture was ruined because the Lebanese guy is blinking. Robert Saleh. I love the New York media. And yes, it was clear. They were like, bro, you got to lighten the load on the Just for Men on your beard, bro. Like, he looked like, if you go back and look, the man is fully bearded, and it looks like he's got the full-on, like he used the Black Max men's, Just for Men's, and his eyes are closed in the photo. So you look at Dan Campbell. I love everybody that cropped it. It was funny. And the absence of Brad Holmes made it funny for me to say, well, Brad didn't participate in the GM photo. Was he actually out there looking for Cam Sutton? But always fun at the owners meeting. Kind of get some information and some kind of behind the scenes. Basically, it's like a validation. It's like a report on what you did in free agency and some early thoughts on the draft. So I think it has value, but it's an annual institution that a lot of people get a lot of information from. Because turning our attention to college basketball, lots went down over the weekend. And let me just start with the pain for me. Michigan State, just, in my opinion, when you're a middle-of-the-road program and that's where you are now, it just hurts because we all remember the glory days. And I hope Tom Izzo is fired up again and dejected, saying that he's going to die trying to make another run. Every Spartan would love another deep run in the tournament to win it again, but it looks farther and farther away when you see the poor offensive style of football, the poor offensive style of basketball, and you saw what Carolina was able to do. They weathered a punch. They weathered a super kick, a jarring blow, but then they came back with a huge run in the first half and made the Spartans just look absolutely antiquated offensively, brick city, just everything that you saw. That's why everybody predicted them to be one and done. Great. You got out of the Friday game. Great. But you couldn't get to the Sweet 16. And you got trumped by Oakland, who beat Kentucky. And everybody said, I should have sprinkled money on it, plus 700 for Oakland to beat Kentucky. The way in which the little engine that could beat a powerhouse program was sick. I love the fact that the boys were ribbing Jack Golke after the game when they beat Kentucky, singing to him the State Farm song, and he became a national treasure right away. Greg Kampe did 30 interviews in between. He got to promote Oakland, and he made money for the program. I think Neil Rule, friend of the podcast, said that the university made collectively $3 million in a check from the NCAA for their appearance. So all in all, for Oakland, hopefully the start of something good, it was a beneficial situation because, look, you and I, we're not going to bullshit anybody. Sweet 16 on the line. You got the ball in a tie game. What the hell offensive play set was that? To not get the shot off, to have the ball bounce off your own hand to go out of bounds was really disturbing, knowing Greg Kampe, he's beating himself up. To not get the shot off, you got to have that drilled in like, okay, it's going to be close. We got to have our A plan, B plan, C plan. And it was just a chaotic mess, and it cost him a chance to get to the Sweet 16. But I'll say this. When you got an Aleem McNeil-looking dude at 6'9", 300 bills that's hooping, me and one of my daughter's dads watched the game, and we were just like, oh, my God, how the hell does anybody stop this guy? And Burns from NC State just got everybody's respect because the man was like a linebacker just floating around there doing all these moves. And we were like, dude, we got to highlight this guy. But credit to Oakland. I think to me, what was the bigger shock was that Oakland beat Kentucky and lived it and was a possession away from the Sweet 16. The Golden Grizzlies put themselves on the map. I called an MSU flameout. I got roasted online because prior to the tournament, I said, I don't even care if they make it because they're middle of the road. They're a top 32 team. Whoop-de-doo, cuz.
Yeah, look, I don't do this often on our show, but I'm going to do it today. I basically called what Oakland was going to do, and I got the player wrong who was going to get hot.
Yes.
But I basically said it was going to be one of the guys for Oakland was going to go off and have essentially a career day, and that's how they were going to get advanced to the next round.
Yep.
And look, I think it was a huge deal. I think it was a bit of a bigger shock because Oakland was going up against a blue chip team. They were going up against the blue blood, and they knocked them off. And look, like you said, little engine that could. That's what they were. The best part is, a week prior, Greg Kampe basically told everybody how they were going to do it.
Yeah.
And him and Calipari, they have a relationship. They're friends. And once Oakland beat Kentucky, I was like, are they going to move on from Calipari? Isn't it time? Because Calipari, I think, is like last 4 out of 5 trips to the NCAA tournament, he's been outed in the first round. That team, it just kind of falls asleep in that first round, and they just can't get out of their own way. Oakland took advantage, and like you said, being one possession away from getting from the Sweet 16, this would have been such a magical run for Oakland if they could have just executed on that final possession, just figured out a way to get past this game and get into the next round, because I think once they advanced, they would have had more confidence. They would have been believing. And I think if they just dialed in a couple of things, because their zone defense caused fits for these teams. They play such a good caliber of defense. This is the one thing that's kind of missing in college basketball right now. It's a lot of offense. A lot of players worry so much on the offensive end of the game, they forget the defensive side. Oakland, they value the defense. It's a lot of older players. It's a lot of guys who have been there, done that. They understand what it takes to win. They understand that, hey, offensively, we're not as talented as all of these blue chip teams or all of these guys who play in a much higher caliber division than we do. We've got to grind it out. We've got to play good on the defensive side. We've got to rebound. We've got to box out. It's the fundamentals. They realize that, and they take advantage, and they do that. MSU flaming out, at a certain point, isn't it on Tom Izzo to do what's best for Michigan State and just walk away? I know he wants that second national championship, but if you hear him talk after this game, I get it. It's fresh. I get it. It's one of those things where you maybe haven't thought everything through because you're still riding high on emotions. But to come out and basically say, look, I'm going to do whatever it takes, or I'm going to die trying to make a deeper run. No. There is no more deeper run. You need to win a national championship. If you want to cement your legacy, you need that second national championship. And this team, this program, has basically fallen onto dire straits. This program, I don't want to say it looks broken because it does not look broken, but it is not as robust as it once was. This is a program where I'm not sure if you can go out and get those top recruits. I don't know if you can go out and if your head coach wants to do what it's going to take to get those top recruits. I don't know if MSU has the same cachet it once did. I don't know if Tom Izzo has the same cachet it once did. As a matter of fact, I do know. He does not. At this moment in time, Tom's going to be, I think, 70 going into next season. It's time for you to hang it up. It's time for you to give it over to somebody else. You're done. You're done. Your program's cooked. Yeah, you guys aren't getting your ass beat like Michigan did this year, but your program is cooked. You are essentially make it to the tournament and then get busted out. That's what you are. You're usually an easy out for whomever you're facing. It is time to move on from Tom Izzo.
Man, that was like a dagger to the heart, cuz. And what it is that
sorry, dude. I'm telling you how it is. It's like,
it's stale.
You know, I like Tom Izzo. I like Michigan State basketball. I like it when you don't play Michigan, right? Because you can wipe Michigan's face for the most part. But at this moment in time, just being a guy who's watching from the outside, it's run its course. He is so stuck in his own ways. He does not like to change. His offense, his defense, these things are basically trite at this point. There's nothing new. There's nothing revolutionary about what he's doing. I don't know if he has the ability to do what it takes to get those big-time recruits. We know that the landscape of college sports has completely changed because of NIL. It makes things incredibly difficult. You've seen one of the winningest football coaches hang him up in Nick Saban. Nick Saban says, I don't want to do this anymore. This isn't what it's all about. This isn't what I signed up for. I think Michigan State's kind of in that same weird paradox where you got a head coach who's like, this isn't what I signed up for. I don't want to have to do these things, but I still want to keep coaching. Well, if you want to coach at that high level, you want to win that national championship, you're going to have to get into the mud, and you're going to have to figure out your NIL program and how you want to go about it. It's unfortunate, but this is the landscape that you're in. That's why I say that Tom Izzo's cooked. He's done. You got to move on because the game is changing and evolving, and he does not necessarily want to evolve with it.
Right, and it's an offensive league. You gotta score. You gotta have guys that are, adaptable. And Hogard just didn't. You needed more from Akins and Walker and Hogard. You needed your guys to take care of business, and eventually it didn't happen. But look, a little bit of hope for the future. Xavier Booker should be somebody that develops. If you can surround him with talent, maybe you get Trey Townsend, another guy that can be a scorer. If you pay him that $500K that he's expected to make, maybe you get some opportunities to get that presence where you can have inside-out scoring and be more consistent. But I think Tom Izzo got away from what he does well. The team, you just got to be who you are. You got to get listen, the game of basketball, you got to get lethal scorers, guys that like a Jack Golke that night in, night out is getting you 24 no matter what. And when you can't have it where you punch first and North Carolina makes a run and you fold over. It's like you go inside, kick it outside, Akins, Walker, Hogard, Malik Carr, nobody could answer. It was tough. Because have you seen Jack Golke everywhere? I mean, I thought he would cash in, but I didn't think he'd cash in 6 hours later. It was funny in that it's kind of double-edged sword where everybody's talking about money and the way in which money has impacted. But for a guy like that, you kind of root for him because in a way you feel like a guy that had a great game and put himself out there that normally wouldn't get scratched a $50,000 check to throw out some posts. He got some, you know what I mean? So you don't feel like it's a guy that goes into it going, I'm not playing for Oakland unless you scratch me the bag. You know what I mean? He's like, I went to Oakland to try to have an experience after playing at Hillsdale. So it has more of a wholesome feel in my mind. I don't know, but it was a little bit much because we're going on 4 and 5 different ads. It's like you blink and it's like, I'm working with an AI-generated thing now. I'm working with BW3s. I'm working with this. And I was like, damn. Like, you found somebody in 24 hours to get you all these deals? Or they just messaged him and he was like, sure. So good for you, Jack. Take the cash. Figure it out later. But in my mind, I was like, God damn, they found that guy quick. But, I'm not used to a guy just bursting on the scene just that quickly, but he was ready for it. Like, he was composed. I thought he had the right amount of snark. I thought the man was just really funny to talk about, like, that jab that he took against Kentucky, saying that, we heard that them saying that I'm just going to be selling insurance, but collectively, hey, we might not have a room full of guys going to the NBA, but we're a good team. And to really, the crazy part was, cause nobody knew Oakland was in Michigan. And then that sparked off Auburn Hills,
Everybody
Rochester.
thinks it was part of California. It's so funny.
So it was crazy. It's been good. The Detroit scene, if you guys get out there Friday, 7:30, Purdue Gonzaga, I'll be in the building for that. That's potentially gonna be fun. Have an opportunity to, because it's great. The University of Detroit Mercy is the official host, so I got a connection there, so I get a credential to. It sucks though. The final game is going to be on Sunday. I hope it's at 7 because Sunday's Easter. So, man, I was like, "Hun, is there a way for me to go?" And she's like, it gives you that look. Like, I'm like, "Oh man, the game's probably going to be at 4, so that's right when dinner's going to happen." So hopefully the couple games Friday 7:30 and 10 will be rewarding enough to get the fill. So we'll see what happens in the college tournament. Because to me, it looks like UConn and everybody else, and Houston, I like what I saw from them. To me, I was pretty proud. Scratch, man. It would have gone down had we filled it out. If you were wise just to put a bunch of number 1 seats, you might have did well because there were not a lot of upsets. But in my mind, I like Purdue, Gonzaga. I like Houston. I like what I'm seeing from UConn. And the Blue Bloods kind of seem like they reestablished themselves as being some contenders.
Yeah, it was. It's weird. It's very rare that we ever get basically scratch holding its own. Usually, you'll get one of the 1 seeds that just kind of flop. It's been a little bit of an interesting tournament, but I think you're right. I think it's kind of UConn and probably everybody else at this moment in time. These next round of games will be really, really interesting. It'll be a lot of fun. This has been a really fun tournament thus far.
Yeah.
I know last week we were kind of dogging on this a little bit. We still watch because I feel like we're junkies for sports.
Yes.
So we're still turning it on. We're still tuning in. We're still watching these things. But it's been a lot of fun to kind of go along with this and just kind of follow along. I didn't do a bracket, so I don't have any interest. I have zero rooting interest. I'm just watching good basketball.
Me
That's
too.
it.
I would have probably been good because I would have picked all the number 1 seeds all the way through. Maybe just one random number 2 seed. Maybe would have picked Oakland, but I would have picked State 1 and done. I didn't see Michigan in the bracket. What do you think? But they stole the show this weekend because May coming to the program is a good hire. Even though FAU flamed out against Northwestern, when it was announced that the program, Michigan, basically found a way to get him to not go to Louisville and to come to Michigan, I think is a good hire. And I think that when you got a coach that has ties to Michigan stemming from his times with Eastern Michigan, good hire. I think now the rivalry will get back to normal in a year or 2.
Yeah, look, I like it. I think this is a guy who has been able to do a lot with a little, right? He's been able to build a program in an area that is tough to build a program, right?
Yeah.
Florida Atlantic is not a big-name university, especially when you look at everything that kind of surrounds and is in and around Florida, right? You've got Miami. That's a big-time program. You've got Florida. That's a big-time program. You've got Florida State. That's another big-time program. You've got a lot of other programs in the state of Florida, and he's been able to essentially take a group of guys and take a program that was pretty much flatlined, go in and completely build it up and get it to be a player on the national stage, be able to get teams to the Final Four, be able to get teams to the tournament. Michigan hasn't been able to get to the tournament. Their coach, Juwan Howard, too busy punching other coaches, too busy beating up strength and conditioning coaches, too busy trying to get his own kids into the league where he sacrificed everything from the team to do all these other things that didn't help benefit the team. I think this is a guy who's going to be able to come in, has Midwest ties, will be able to utilize those. And look, when you look at some of the big-name coaches that were available, this is one of the bigger name coaches that was available that you could go out and you could get. And I think Michigan did a great job with this hire. It'll be interesting to see how it pays dividends, if it pays dividends. I think in the end it will. I was impressed with Michigan. I was impressed with Ward Manuel. I bag on Ward Manuel a lot. I was impressed that he was able to get this done.
Yes. So, cuz I can't believe it when you put it on there, because we were thinking about talking about something else. Today, if you guys listen to this later on, 4 o'clock today, it's opening day for the Detroit Tigers. It's not at Comerica. It's not opening day at Comerica. It's the opening day for the Detroit Lions going on the road to face the White Sox at 4 o'clock. Holy cow, that came up on everybody quick, and you look at it, and everybody was talking. I was at a kid's birthday party on Sunday, and everyone was like, John, Tigers were like 20-9. They were rocking the Grapefruit League, and everybody that went that was in Florida that kind of spent time there and saw the Tigers were like impressed. They were like, wait a minute. They were like, Parker Meadows, Riley Green, Spencer Torkelson, the pitchers. It's something here. So to me, there's more optimism. I think the pitching staff is the big question mark with, Bo Brisky, I think, getting sent down and having Faedo and, having an opportunity for him to be in the bullpen. You see the starters and you realize, okay, this is a baseball team that has the feel of a young squad that's forced to overachieve because the team didn't give them support. Because there's talent on this team. When you see the minor leagues kind of steadily rising, you see what sucks is because you see the framework of a team, but in baseball, you do need a little bit of thoroughbreds. You got a bunch of guys that are hard workers and guys that are going to be, compensated at the level of kind of mid-tier talent. But I think this team can win. I'm thinking this year, 500, 82 to 85 wins. And I think that they'll be in it late, but I don't think they make the playoffs. And it's just because you're $55 million below the threshold. You're spending money less, and you have an albatross in a batting spot with Javier Baez. You added 3 more players, and to me, seeing J.D. Martinez sign somewhere else for $12 million. Now, he said he was addicted to the playoffs, so maybe he turned you down and laughed at you, but you didn't throw out a report that you were interested. So to me, it just has a feel, and this is how I'm going to watch it this year. Yes, I'll get mad if they don't play right, if their defense sucks. I want to see this baseball team score more runs, try to get on the plus side of the run differentials, try to, play a better brand of baseball, and try to be around 500 and compete. So this is, again, we said it last year, I'll say it this year. It's a jot down 3-4 players and see how they develop. I want to see Spencer develop, Riley Green stay healthy, develop, the pitching staff develop, Casey Mize stay healthy. That's it. That's my realistic expectation for this team. It's very low. It's non-existent in terms of an expectation other than develop. What's your mindset regarding the 2024 Tigers?
It's funny because sometimes it's like you read my mind. I'm in lockstep with you, right? I don't think this team has the ability to get to the playoffs this year, and it's because of everything you just mentioned.
Yeah.
They've not spent enough money in free agency. They've not gone and addressed certain key infield positions. You've not really addressed your batting lineup. A guy like J.D. Martinez could have came here, could have really have helped out, could have DH'd for you, and could have really helped drive in runs. Because when you look at Javi Baez, he's a black hole in this roster. I don't think Javi Baez makes the entire year. I think at a certain point, if the Lions in the front office in the organization as a whole holds true to what they say, where they don't want veterans basically blockading or stagnating some of the young talent that they have, Javi Baez won't be on this roster for very long. It'll be an incredibly young roster. I don't think incredibly young rosters get hot enough to get to the playoffs. I think you're still trying to figure things out. I think there's too many of those up and down moments where you've got these crazy dry spells where you can't get the ball in play, and that's what cost you a playoff bid. But if Javi Baez is still on this roster come the All-Star break, we have to have a completely different conversation because this organization is lying to you, and there were players out there that are available that could come here that would be willing to take your money to play for you. So it'll be interesting to see how this season goes. Next week, we're going to do our Tigers opening day thing.
Yeah.
Because they'll be back here the following week. I think Friday is opening day.
Yes.
So we'll have some coverage for that. But baseball kicks off today. Lions. I think it's Lions Chicago. I think the game starts at like 3:30 on Thursday afternoon. So
I like how you said
if you're listening to this early in the day, you can take in the Tigers later on in the afternoon.
I like how early you said Lions, but yes, Tigers, baby.
Oh, did I say Lions?
Yeah.
I got Lions on the brain all the time.
That's right. That's what I'm saying. We got to get it. So that I think the Tigers will win a key series here or there, because you're not going to believe it. And I'll leave with this. Every year, I always wonder, because we never get invited to the food tasting at Ford Field or Comerica. And I put out in the universe, I'm like, damn it, this week I'm going to self-promote the podcast, and I don't care, be damned who likes it or who doesn't like it. I'm going to spend the better part of 2-3 days just saying how great we are. And clearly the relationship with SI is going to continue. The management from the old place went to the new place, and they were like, yeah, got to bring my guys, and John's one of them. So DSP is sticking with SI for the foreseeable future. I told Vito, I'm like, hey, get me on these lists. I don't care. You're with the Detroit Sports Commission. You know these people. Get me on the lists. And still, in all my time, never been invited yet, unless it's in the back channel email, to the Lions food tasting. It always ends up being at a time where there's like a media day. So I don't want to cover the Lions right and then go eat. But I popped in the email, and I got invited to the Tigers tasting the day before this airs. So I'm going to see if it fits in the schedule. It's uncertain at this point as we're talking. But if I wanted to, on when you guys are hearing this, there is a chance that Wednesday, the day before this comes out, I could have tasted all the food that's going to be at Comerica Park. So check it if I get down there. If the schedule can be worked in that way, it's always a challenge to work through the schedule with the Lions and everything going on. But there could be some content at Detroit Podcast that involves what you guys are going to put in your, what you're going to enjoy at Comerica Park. So I'm finally invited. So things are turning around. We broke a story. Things are turning around. So we'll see how this goes. And this is all thanks to the support that you guys give us. You let us come on and broadcast, have a good old time. And really, it's fun that we took a podcast and are working with Sports Illustrated. By the management's accounts, at least, is now the #1 sports website in the world. And check out SI.com. Always want to show love for them. And show love to the Detroit Sports Podcast. At Detroit Podcast, let us know. And cuz, you know what's good? The universe always conspires that when I get my head swollen, somebody just feels the need to message. And this was not a recent message, but late at night, you're bored and you see that, someone wrote something on LinkedIn and people use that. So I'm like, you know what? That's not a bad thing. Let me go check mine. I know I got 2 of them. I just haven't been on it. And I pop on my personal one, not the podcast one. And I pop up and there's one notification. I'm like, let me check it out. Maybe somebody wants to, maybe somebody else reached out to me for to cover the NFL from the 8 that reached out, and I missed it. And nope, May 1st of last year, you guys got to listen to this. And I quote, I forgot the guy's name. I don't think I screenshotted the guy's name because it was so fucking hilarious. May 1st of last year, regarding the Lions draft class, you must be a much better shrink than sports analyst. The Lions draft class was complete trash with every single pick. They will be worse than they were last season. Stick to shrinking because you have no coordination for athletics, not even writing about them. And I looked at that and I thank God. Stick to shrinking. I looked at that, and at 11:45 at night in a weekday, I just started laughing and I said, you know what? The universe is all right. As high as I can get, I'm always going to have that as around the corner. So I laugh, and no worries, guys. You can write to us no matter what. You can write to Adam at AdamRSTROZ. The blessing is I don't take it personally. I replied, so you still think that? 8 months later or a year later. So I love it. I love being part of the community. I love the hate. I love the love that's been shown. And all I've ever wanted, in all honesty, is to just be a small part of the sports community. And the work that Adam and I did to just broadcast, have a good old time, to make this a staple and make it important. I'll always tell everybody, podcasts are media. It's real. And the biggest media companies in the world recruited us to say, hey, we want the Detroit Sports Podcast to push out our stuff. And there's no better honor than to say that and to be part of it and to not only land something, but to keep something and to have somebody jump ship and to say, hey, this podcast is a priority. Stay with us. We like what we're seeing. And I really got a question. I'm like, do you guys even read the shit I'm posting? Like, I'm making jokes. I'm like using innuendos. I'm using things that you're not probably supposed to say, and never a peep. They've never said a single word. And why is that? Why is because you guys that listen to this, that support the Twitter page and listen to me and Adam clown around and tell our story is the best thing going. And I'm so thankful that Adam said yes to my stupid idea to, hey, let's just do a podcast, see what happens. He said yes, and he stuck with it. And he's crazy too. So follow him on Twitter again, at AdamRSTROZ. And thank you from the bottom of my heart, deeply. You let me have a fun week just ranting and raving, proving the media wrong, that we weren't just a bunch of clowns, that in the end, we had a following. And that following has followed us through podcasts, through the nonsense that we write, and through reading the sports coverage that we got. The reason is that you guys support it, and that's why we keep firing it up. For nearly 11, 12 years, the Detroit Sports Podcast has been on the air. For the Jock, Adam Strozinski, I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Thank you for letting us broadcast this latest hour, and I can't wait to fire it up next week on the latest and greatest edition of Doc and Jock.